The knee joint consists of two articulations between bones in the lower limb, one between the tibia and femur, which is the weight-bearing tibiofemoral articulation, and one between the femur and patella, which works to generate mechanical advantage and improve the overall efficiency of the knee joint. This is known as the patellofemoral articulation. The knee joint facilitates extension and flexion in a hinge-like manner, and it's a perfect example of a hinge joint. It also allows for a very small degree of internal and external rotation, but this can only occur when the knee is flexed. All other movements of the knee are extremely limited in a healthy person. Okay, let's take a look more closely at the bones making up this joint. We'll be looking at the left knee. This is the femur, which is the large long bone that goes from the pelvis to the knee. We can see from the front the lower part of the femur looks a bit like an upside down letter Y. These two bony protuberances on either side are known as the medial and lateral epicondyles of the femur respectively. Just above the medial epicondyle is another small protuberance known as the adductor tubercle, which is where the adductor magnus muscle inserts. The last two protuberances are the medial condyle, which sits here, and the lateral condyle, which sits here. The two condyles are lined with articular hyaline cartilage. The depression in the cartilage between these two condyles is known as the patellar surface, and it's where the patellofemoral articulation sits. If we look at the lower femur from inferior and posterior views, we can see that the cartilage forms a sort of arch shape and splits into two parts which pass all the way around to the posterior surface of the joint. Lastly, the dip between the two condyles is helpfully known as the intercondylar fossa. Now let's look at the tibia, which is similar in shape to the femur at this level. Like the femur, the tibia has a medial condyle and a lateral condyle. These articulate with the condyles of the femur. While the femoral condyles are convex, the tibial condyles are slightly concave to allow the femur to sit comfortably. Like the femoral condyles, the tibial condyles are covered with articular hyaline cartilage. However, the cartilage only covers two relatively flat areas on the superior surface of the joint, together known as the tibial plateau. We can see this really well from above. The bony prominence between the two tibial condyles is known as the intercondylar eminence, and on either side of it are two projections known as the medial and lateral intercondylar tubercles. This eminence and its tubercles slot into the intercondylar fossa of the femur and help to stabilise the knee joint. There are lots of other important bumps on the superior tibia, but we'll leave them for another day. For now, just remember that we also have the fibular bone, which articulates with the lateral tibia here. Compared to the other two bones, the patella is really simple. It's a round, flat sesamoid bone that sits within the quadriceps tendon. From behind, we can see the patella is covered with a single sheet of hyaline cartilage. It has two depressions, one for each condyle of the femur, and a smooth vertical ridge which helps keep the patella in place during movement. If the joint were left like this, we'd have an unstable joint that's subject to large amounts of shock during loading. Thus, to assist, between the femur and tibia are fibrocartilaginous structures known as the medial and lateral menisci. These are best viewed by looking at the tibial plateau from above. We can see that the menisci are C-shaped and both connect directly to the intercondylar eminence of the tibia. The medial meniscus is slightly larger than the lateral one. The two menisci are usually connected together anteriorly by the small transverse ligament of the knee. The menisci are soft and cup-shaped and act to absorb shock when the knee is loaded, as well as deepen the knee joint and help prevent dislocation. They are vulnerable to tears and are frequently injured in sports people. The next group of structures adding stability to the knee joint are its various ligaments. The most famous of these are the cruciate ligaments, one anterior and one posterior. These are also best viewed by looking at the tibial plateau from above. These ligaments sit inside the knee joint and are named based on their relationship to the tibia. The anterior cruciate ligament comes from the anterior part of the intercondylar eminence of the tibia and attaches to the posterior lateral femoral condyle. And the posterior cruciate ligament goes from the posterior intercondylar eminence to the medial condyle of the femur. The word cruciate comes from the Latin origin crux, for cross, due to the way the ligaments appear to cross over one another when viewed from above. The last two major ligaments of the knee joint are the two collateral ligaments. These are easily viewed anteriorly. There is a medial collateral ligament, which is broad and flat and connects the medial femoral epicondyle to the medial tibial condyle, and a lateral collateral ligament, which is thinner and rounder and attaches the lateral femoral epicondyle to the head of the fibula. The medial collateral ligament is special in that it's fused directly to the medial meniscus. This means a lateral blow to the knee usually results in damage to both of these medial structures, often also accompanied by damage to the anterior cruciate ligament. When all three structures are damaged, it's known as a blown knee, or sometimes the unhappy triad. Between these four ligaments, the knee is held relatively firmly in place, with the cruciates restricting movement in the anterior-posterior plane and the collaterals restricting movement in the medial-lateral plane. There are a number of other ligaments in the knee, some important and some less so. Let's quickly cover them now. The first is the massive patellar ligament, which is really a continuation of the quadriceps tendon. This originates from the patella and passes inferiorly to insert into the anterior tibia at the tibial tuberosity. Also connecting to the patella are the medial and lateral patellofemoral ligaments and the medial and lateral patella retinacula. These help hold the patella in place. On the lateral knee is the recently confirmed anterolateral ligament of the knee, which attaches the femur to the tibia and performs a similar function to the lateral collateral ligament. On the posterior knee joint are two large popliteal ligaments, one arcuate ligament which limits external rotation, and one oblique ligament which prevents hyperextension. Both of these ligaments sit relatively superficially and blend with the fibrous layer of the joint capsule. Lastly, there are several small ligaments within the knee joint that are often forgotten. We've already mentioned the transverse ligament of the knee between the two menisci anteriorly. There are also the anterior and posterior meniscofemoral ligaments, which connect the lateral meniscus to the medial condyle of the femur. And finally, the medial and lateral meniscotibial ligaments, which help hold the two menisci down onto the tibial plateau. Wow, okay, that's a lot of anatomy, but we're nearly done. I'm not going to cover the muscles involved in the knee joint, as there are many, but also remember that the muscles, along with ligaments and menisci, are the final structures that add stability to the knee joint and facilitate all of the movements we require of it. Blood supply to the knee joint comes from branches of the popliteal and femoral arteries, which we've covered in detail in previous videos on the popliteal fossa and the arteries of the body. Veins follow a similar distribution and drain into the popliteal and femoral veins. Arteries and veins supplying the knee joint are referred to as geniculate structures, which comes from the Latin word genu for knee. This probably itself originates from the word geniculatus, which means having knots or knotted. Nervous supply to the knee comes from the femoral, tibial and common fibular nerves, which also supply the muscles in this region. Now that's nearly it, but the last thing you may hear mentioned in relation to the anatomy of the knee are its numerous bursae. These are synovial fluid-filled sacs that cushion the various moving parts of the knee to reduce wear. Let's start by looking at the knee from a medial perspective. The first is the large prepatellar bursa, which sits between the patella and the skin. Then there are the two infrapatellar bursae, which sit superficial and deep to the patellar tendon, and one suprapatellar bursa, which sits deep to the quadriceps tendon. I'm not going to cover all the rest, but be aware that there are at least 7 more bursae around the knee joint that mostly sit between muscles. Inflammation of these bursae can cause significant pain and discomfort and is a common reason for presentation to general practice. Okay, there we go. That's a detailed run-through of the anatomy of the knee joint. If you're interested in learning more about this area, I'd recommend watching our video on the popliteal fossa, which is an anatomical region located just behind the knee. In the meantime, I hope you learned something and have a great day.